Journalist icon Mishal Husain's book, Broken Threads, revisits the story of partition through the lens of her family and both sets of grandparents who lived through it and who were affected by it in different ways. She begins by stating that her history spans 3 countries, India, Pakistan and England, and how her origin story begins in India where 3 of her grandparents were born. Mishal's grandparents were witnesses to a huge global shift, the end of the age of empires and the dawn of new states. The stories recounted in here are really emotional and heartbreaking. It leads me to imagine what my grandparents and their parents went through. It feels so real to me as I empathise with their experiences. But sadly, these realities are still playing out in the lives of migrants and refugees who have borne the brunt of colonialism that still lives on and are escaping a lifetime that has been made unlivable through its legacy. In this book, Mishal does explore the history of what was happening at the time, in the lead up and the aftermath of partition. In rarely portrayed narratives, she documents the Muslim experience of partition. She mentions how the Muslim community were treated by the East India Company and the Raj, especially after the First Indian War of Independence in 1857. Muslims were suppressed even more to ensure that they became weak and powerless and weren't able to oppose the British. And through extensive research and first-hand accounts, including Mishal's grandparents, the treatment of Muslims extended to the treatment of the idea and the creation of Pakistan. Friendships and personal feelings overpowered the sense of fairness and moral duty to partition and the creation of Pakistan. The British Empire and the Congress under Jawaharlal Nehru have a lot to be accountable for. Mishal Husain reflects on what would continue to cause her grandparents pain if they were alive today, and she mentions the continuous involvement of the Pakistani army in politics, the battle of minority communities on both sides of the border, and the lost potential in trade and contact between these 2 countries. She speaks about the ongoing legacy of partition on the people living in the subcontinent, but also in the diaspora communities. And one of the most disastrous impacts was the difficulties and sometimes impossibility to try and visit India or Pakistan. After partition, her grandparents were continuously worried about family, parents and friends left in India. They said they felt incomplete for a long time. The trauma of partition was not only on those who went through it, sadly, but will impact every generation that comes after. The sense of belonging that we may have felt in our ancestral lands is a thing of the past. Colonialism has ensured that we carry trauma from generation to generation. So when we try to put ourselves in the shoes of our families that went through the direct impact of partition, it's very traumatic. They left everything behind, as well as much of their possessions, their friends, their culture, everything that they knew. And knowing that they may never see any of these things again, this trauma has not just been reserved for the children of partition, but we see it across the world, and worse still, these people's tragedy is looked at with disgust. There's many who don't want to see people of different non-white backgrounds in Western lands. Partition has had a lasting impact on our identity. We lost the chance to be who we are. We now have identities and nationalism imposed on us, despite having multiple identities. We are also left powerless to change the structures and the institutions that maintain these inequalities. Mishal, however, ends with a message of hope. She says, perhaps then the threads are more frayed than broken, because stories have been handed down in countless families, creating an oral link with the past. Today, those tales connect people like me with those who went before, but taken together they also revealed bonds across borders, which one day might be more than memories.